May I walk in peace, yes, in stillness. May I walk in forgiveness. May I walk in loving kindness. May I walk, oh, may I walk in peace. May I walk in peace every day. In peace, let the year go. In peace, got a new year. In peace, may I walk in peace.
Thank you, Leeann and Coleman. Beautiful, beautiful. And we're excited. All right. Good morning, everyone. You know, the past, the present, and the future walked into a bar together, and it was tense. But I was one of my favorite stories around this time of year is a story of an Amish family that had some business they had to go into this big city to take care of, and as they were riding their buggy into the city, they wound up going to the building, this big tall building that they had to go into, and they had to go up to like the 24th floor, and they'd never really been to the city before, and they'd really kind of just had pretty much stayed in their own little community, and so when they went inside, the father, or the pa, basically was driving the buggy and said, you know, y'all go in and I'll find a place to park the buggy and I'll come and join you. And so they went inside, and it was a mother and a young son, and then they went inside, and as they went inside, they looked and they saw this wall that it was like silver and shiny, and they weren't sure exactly what it was, but it had doors that kept opening and closing like this. Couldn't quite figure out what was going on. And in a little bit, there was an older gentleman that kind of wheeled up in a wheelchair and rolled into this little closet, after the doors were open, and they were just amazed. They hadn't seen that before and couldn't quite understand what that was. And the doors closed, and then they saw all these lights going, and they thought, well, what in the world is that? What in the world could that be? And a little bit, the lights kind of go back the other way. The doors open, and this strapping 25-year-old man walks out, and just gorgeous young man, and the mother looks over at the son and says, son, go get your pa. Well, today we're going to talk about, not necessarily that, but talk about starting over, kind of becoming new in a real sense. And it's really about an awareness. Actually, let me got some props here I need to get. We're starting a new adventure. And this year, we're going to actually be working with a series of lessons that were created specifically for Unity and by Unity ministers, and actually reviewed by a group of Unity licensed teachers and ministers. And it's been a wonderful work that has been used in many Unity churches over the years, and it's called The Quest. How many of you are familiar with this work? We got a few folks that are. It's a really wonderful work, and it really gives you a real overview of Unity's understanding and teachings of spiritual principles. And it's called A Journey of Spiritual Rediscovery, The Quest. And so I'm inviting each of you to join me this year as we go on a quest. And as we begin to look at what this really means, we're talking about a journey, and that journey, of course, is one that is not so much an outer journey, although it will affect what goes on in the outer world, but really it's an inner journey. It's a journey of really unfolding and discovering more of our unique divine nature. It's actually a journey back to a deeper experience of God, of the divine, and our connection and our oneness with that, and our opportunities for being a light in the world. And so when we look at and think about a journey, almost all of our classical literature, many of our great movies even for that matter, in some way describe a quest, don't they? You think about, the Lord of the Rings, or you think about even the Harry Potter stories and some of these wonderful stories that we have, but some of the ancient ones of the Iliad and the Odyssey are actually all stories about the human quest and the human quest for something higher and something more in life. And each one of us, whether we realize it or not, on some form, in some way, we're on this quest. We are actually here. In fact, I'm going to ask you a question, maybe a basic question, and the question really is, why are you here? Why are you here at this service today? I'm going to suggest to you that you came here primarily because you're looking for something. Anybody not here looking for something? So we're looking for something, and sometimes we're not totally sure exactly what that is that we're looking for, but there is, in each and every journey, in each and every quest, there is a call. We receive some kind of a call. There's something that moves us. And in some cases, it may be like in The Wizard of Oz. Sometimes it's a tornado that picks you up and takes you somewhere, and you're not sure exactly where you are, and you got to figure out how to get back where you want to be. Know that one? Or sometimes it's just like in Moby Dick, Herman Melville's Moby Dick, where you just have this sense of torment and depression that you need to move through and move out of, and something calls you to the sea or to some adventure to make some difference and some change in your experiences in your life. I think we all get that strongly from time to time, and other times we kind of get that and we kind of go, yeah, don't bother me right now. I'm busy, living. I'm busy, trying to pay the bills. I'm busy trying to take care of the kids or trying to take care of, stuff in life. And so sometimes we find ourselves not really paying attention to that call, but each and every one of us has been given a call. When I first got called in the ministry, it was not my first call. I'd been called to do a lot of things. I had been called to be a salesperson because I really enjoyed that work, and there were things about it that I really loved. But eventually there was a call that was so much deeper for me, and that was to really be of service to something more and to something higher. Well, I'm convinced that every one of us has that call. And whether it's a call to get up here and do this like I do on Sunday, or whether it's a call to simply live your life more fully and to be more authentic in who you are, it's still something that is really resonating within every one of us. And that's what brings us together. It's part of what really brought us to unity. I don't think anybody really makes it into this kind of organization, this kind of group, or this kind of fellowship unless you have a connection of that call on some level. And we see it in each other, and then we call it forth from each other. And that's part of the reason why we come together also. And so we're here to listen to that call and to take it a little more. Regardless of the form that it takes, it's something that stirs inside of us and moves us to want to do something different. And then, of course, we have a journey. When we get the call, it doesn't necessarily, it's not always 100% clear what that is. And so part of the journey is really discovering, what is this call about? What is it really trying to say to us? What is it really moving us into or moving us through? And in the journey, there's always something that kind of pulls us in some direction. Every journey basically has a prize. We're talking about what Joseph Campbell calls the hero's journey. Each and every one of us is on a hero's journey. And the hero's journey is really your journey. And you're the hero. And you're the hero of the story. Or you're basically sitting back and reading somebody else's story. Right? And sometimes we have a tendency to do that. We have a tendency to try and listen to what everybody else says that we're supposed to be doing or thinks that we're supposed to be doing or being the way that someone else thinks we're supposed to be. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Well, guess what? That's part of the journey also. And part of the journey is learning to wake up and listen to that inner voice, that inner call that is your call, that is leading you to be and do and live and to experience and to express in ways that are your way of experiencing and expressing. And the prize in that is really, we've talked, you've heard about the golden fleece or the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail is really being more clear and centered in your own unique divine nature. And we're here to wake up to the possibilities of what that really means for us. And what it means for you is not going to be necessarily the same as what it means for me. Each one of us has within us the Christ nature. Interestingly enough, though, the Christ doesn't look the same in every being. Do you realize that? It doesn't look the same. Even, Jesus the Christ and Leeann the Christ and Julie the Christ and Jim the Christ, they all are expressions of the divine. Jesus said, the things that I have done, you shall do also, and even greater things. And you think about the lessons that and the model that Jesus presented for us in terms of a hero's journey. He really came to show us that there was something more to our life and to the life in this world than what had been living and what we've been living. And he's a model for this wonderful hero's journey in many ways. And so we'll be using the example of Jesus in many ways, but we'll also be using the example of other enlightened beings as well, because each one of them has gone through a special, unique hero's journey. And they've been the trailblazers for us, you might say. They've kind of blazed the path. Julie and I were at yoga this last week, and I saw one of the signs on the yoga place that we go to said that yoga is the journey. The practice is the path. And I'm going to suggest to you that the word yoga and unity are actually from the same root word. And so you might think about it this way, and that is that unity is the journey. And doing the spiritual practices that we teach and we talk about, that's the path. Really taking the time to use our thoughts and our words and our affirmations and meditating and moving into the silence and really sitting with that presence of the divine in our own unique nature, and also then looking out and seeing it in each other and seeing that divine nature in those around us. Those are all the path on the journey. Does that make sense? I think it's a beautiful image if you think about it. And so we have trailblazers. We have those who are leading us into a higher and deeper, richer experience of our possibilities. And every part of that journey begins in some way with a rebirth. In a very real sense, every journey begins, as Lao Tzu said, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, right? And so we're here today to kind of celebrate taking a step. Are you open for starting over, starting new, living another step in a different way, making different decisions, looking at life from a different perception, different perspective? Because it's absolutely one of the most significant things we can do in our spiritual journey is to realize that each day is a new spiritual journey. And that we're all here to take a new step and to allow ourselves to become, as Paul said, a new creation. I am a new creation in Christ. And so that's part of our celebration here today. Now, the quest that we're going to be working on, the journey we're talking about, is not really necessarily religious, because religion really is more of a creation of following particular forms and shapes and ceremonies and that sort of thing. We are going to do a ceremony today, and it's a beautiful ceremony, but it's not necessarily something that is it's an outer expression of an inner quality, and that's how I like to look at the ceremonies that we work with. And so it's an inner path that we're following, and ultimately the hero. It's a path of the hero, which is a path to your richer and fuller experience in living. And, like being able to see life from a different way, a different perception. Colors become brighter, life becomes richer. And even though you do have challenges and difficulties that you go through, you find that you have the resources and the strength to be able to go through them on a different level. You know, they say that life is not, you know, spiritual growth is not a steady path upward. It really is more of a spiral. And we come around to a lot of times the challenges that we have in life over and over again, but always from a little different perception and a little different perspective. And so you're being invited here to really take another step, a new step. I'm convinced that ultimately there's a desire in every one of us to have an opportunity or a second opportunity, a second chance, a do-over. I love that movie, City Slickers. Anybody ever y'all remember that movie? It's kind of an old one, but it's been around a while. I love it. But they talk about, you know, it's a do-over. We all you get a do-over. Well, I think we get a do-over every moment of every day if we're willing to accept it. And that really starts with being able and willing to make a different choice and to make a different decision. I see people going, thank God. I actually thank God also, because I can tell you I've needed to do some do-overs a few times in my life. So when we think about the inner journey, one of the things that Richard and Mary Alice DeFola, the primary writers of this work, called The Quest, one of the metaphors that they use is that we are actually, when we do start over again, we're actually moving into new territory. And they call it terra incognita. Terra incognita. Isn't that an interesting term? And it really means unknown land, or unexplored land, or undiscovered land. And so one of the reasons why we oftentimes don't try to start things over again is because it's unknown. And we have a tendency to resist the unknown. There's a part of us that tends to believe that unless we know, then we can't do. It's true, isn't it? We think we have to know something before something can happen. And I'm going to suggest to you that's the height of spiritual arrogance. We believe we have to know how to be healthy before we can be healthy. And I'm going to suggest to you it's absolutely not true. We think we have to know how we're going to prosper before we can be prosperous. And that's not true either. We think we have to know how to be in a loving relationship before we can be in a loving relationship. And that's not true either. The reality is that's one of the main things that gets in the way of having those experiences, is this belief system that says we have to know how. Now, don't get me wrong, the how oftentimes can be revealed. But one of my, I do some coaching also, and one of my clients recently said, you know, focus on the wow, not the how. And when you think about what you really want and desire in life and what you want to be more of and experience more of, focus on the wow, not the how. So we're moving into a new world, and we're going to do a little ceremony here in a moment to really bring into a deeper awareness of the truth of our true nature. So I'd like to ask our ushers to go ahead and pass out the tiles, the white stones, and the pencils. You know, as we're passing out, I want to say a few words. If an egg is broken from the outside, from an outside source, the life in the egg ends. But if an egg is broken from the inside, from an inside source, that's when life really begins. And so part of what this is a ceremony is to really help to open and to break that egg that we've been cocooned in, you might say, so that we can live into other possibilities in our life. This time of year, people tend to write New Year's resolutions, and I think that's fine. It's a great thing. But I think it's important for us to set real clear intentions for ourselves, and so, but also to really set an idea of, really listen to and get a clearer picture of who and what we are and what we're here to be and what we're called to do and be. And so, last week, for those, how many of you here for the Burning Bowl ceremony? We had quite a few here. The Burning Bowl is a wonderful process for really letting go of the past, and we really were able to let go of those things last week, and that was a big part of our service. This week, I want to talk to you a little bit about really reshaping and reforming the expression of our nature. Let me read to you. This is from Revelations chapter 2, verse 17. He who has an ear, let him hear, and what the Spirit says to the churches. To him who conquers, I will give some of the hidden manna, and I will give him a white stone with a new name written on the stone, which no one knows except him who receives it. This is him and her, by the way. We still haven't updated her. But we're talking about an understanding that I will give a new name. I will give a white stone and a new name written on the stone, which no one knows except the one who receives it. This white stone that you've been given is a representation. And it's a representation of a clear and clean and a new consciousness. You know, when writers begin to write, they have a saying called turning the page. And it really has to do with turning the page so that they have a nice, new, clean, white page to draw forth whatever it is that's being drawn forth from within them to create and to write. And that's what this is about also. And it talks about manna, and the word manna really means, what is it? You know? And you've heard the stories of manna from heaven. Well, manna from heaven is, what is it? Literally, it actually is something that falls in the desert. I won't go into but it's a derivative of tamarisk. And it's actually excreted by bugs and different, and it's actually apparently very nutritious. It's got a lot of nutrition to it. But it represents inspiration and divine ideas. So it's not just a physical form. It's something that feeds us on a spiritual level. It represents those divine insights and wisdom and spiritual nourishment that we receive. And so when you think about, it says that I will give you a new name. Name metaphysically means a new nature. I will give you a new character. I will give you a new nature. I love that about that term, that word. And so when we talk about names in Scripture, they really represent some aspect of our nature and some part of who and what we are. And I will write it on a white stone means there's a new possibility. There's a new creation here, and we're tapping into that part of ourselves that really only we know about who it is that we have come here to be. You know, names in many cultures really always have had significance and meaning. It's true in the Native American cultures. It's true in so many different cultures. And Native Americans oftentimes will take their names from animals or from the sky, and they represent, though, characteristics of those. They don't represent just the animals themselves, but they represent, it would be something like running bull, which really represents a power. And so, you know, when we look at names, it really, they say more than just the words. And so we're here today to really think about and to reflect on what is the name that we are being called to live into. What is it that we're being called to experience and express? And the white stone has always been a symbol of clarity, of freedom, of even in some cultures, they use white stones in juries or in courts. And when you make the jury basically makes a decision, they have a black stone and a white stone. And if you get the white stone, that basically means that you're not guilty, that you're innocent, that you're cleared of all charges. So all things from the past have been released and let go of. So it's a beautiful symbol of that understanding that right now in this moment, you are as God created you, innocent and clear and beautiful and light and love. You are created in the image and after the likeness of the divine, and that's what that represents, that white stone. But on that white stone, it says, I will give you a name. And it's a name that only you will know. So we've oftentimes been prisoners sometimes to our limitations, to our limiting beliefs, to our thoughts about who we are, the words that we use, the things we say about ourselves. You know, the monkey mind, mind chatter of, oh, anybody heard any of that lately? You know what I'm talking about, don't you? And so part of this is really putting aside all of those labels that we put on ourselves, letting go of the labels that we've talked about, the things that we've said about I'm too much this, or I'm too much that, or I'm not enough this, or I'm not enough that. Those are actually just labels and words that we've said that are not really true. And so here we are today to open ourselves up to the possibilities of our unique divine nature. It's not about what we could be or should be or must be. As we come to it, the white stone, as we move into our meditation time, you're going to be invited to stop and just listen in the silence to what is being spoken to you. And you may or may not write down a name today, but I'm going to suggest to you that you start by writing out on the very top of the stone, you can write it in whatever you like, I am. Because I got news for you. That is part of your name. In fact, it is the essence of your name. Write out, I am. Not what you could be or what you should be or what you must be, but just take a moment now as we move into our meditation time, and I'm going to invite our musician to come up and play a little Tickle the Ivories for us, if Coleman will help us in that. We're kind of moving into a time of reflection here. So just take a nice deep breath. Just breathing into the heart space. And we come to a time when each of us, in our own way, in our own time, we've dared to actually look within and to find that truth about ourselves. The truth that in spirit we are created in God's image. Jesus said, you are the light of the world. And we've taken the time to open ourselves to that possibility and to listen to what that means. We place this truth in the manger of our hearts, and so awareness will grow. Last week we released a lot of the things that were perhaps holding us back, any error beliefs or doubts or fears. And so this week we accept the challenge and the gift of living in the moments and the days ahead, a new year, taking a new step, a new beginning. Taking that step as the whole child of God that we are. Behold, I make all things new. To everyone who conquers, I will give some of the hidden manna, the divine inspiration. And I will give a white stone, a clear conscious awareness, a new beginning. And on the white stone is written a new name, a new nature, a new character that no one else except the one who receives it knows. And so we take this symbol of the white stone, of freedom, of new possibilities, of new beginnings. We listen with our open ears and our open heart to what the Spirit of God within speaks and says. teaches and tells us. We listen for the divine ideas of wisdom and inspiration, and we listen for those qualities and characteristics that we wish to experience and express more of. Qualities of strength and faith, of light, of power, of love, of joy, perhaps of play, perhaps of wisdom. I will write a new name, a new nature. Just see yourself in that new nature. And be open to the wisdom and the inspiration and the guidance of Spirit to hear what that name is for you. And it may be something that comes to you right away, and it may be something that comes to you over the next week or so. If something comes to you now in this moment, feel free to go ahead and write it down. And write it on that white stone. And whether something has come to you now in this moment or not, know that it is already there for you, and it will be revealed to you. And just let your consciousness be open at this time to hearing what that is over the next week or so. And you're going to be invited to take this white stone and put it in a place where you can see it. It's a way of reminding you of who and what you truly are and what you're being called here to do and to be. And the light and the power that is being called to shine through you. And take a nice deep breath now. Breathing again into the heart space. Feeling the gratitude, knowing that that name is already given to you. Take another nice deep breath. Let your awareness be in this room, this time, this place. And I invite you to share that name only with those who you know are going to be there to support you in really experiencing and expressing more of that quality. But put it in a special place where you yourself can reflect on it and meditate on it and allow it to resonate within your energy and your vibration and your consciousness. Take another nice deep breath, and when you're ready, gently open your eyes and give thanks. Be present here and now.